sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerd, Matt O'Hara.
Hey, hey.
Just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
Yeah, no Garrett Price, no JJ.
I'm going to have some.
known as Jared Wackerly.
JJ? Jared Jr.?
Jared Jr. He's gone. He's about to have a kid, so he's going to be gone for a while.
He's about to have Jared 3.
So we'll be self-producing here.
Yes.
Just like the good old days.
We're gonna do our best.
Going back to like we did it 8.5 years ago. It's
Yep.
crazy we've been doing this podcast that long. Going on almost 9 years.
I had no gray hairs when we started this.
Yeah. I'm just glad I still have my hair, to be honest with you.
too.
Blessed. Like,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
not a day goes by where I don't think I'm not thankful for that.
Yes, look in the mirror and go, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's already hard enough to look in the mirror. Like there's already plenty going wrong there. You know, like I got a mouthful of saliva. I got ears that stick out. If I had no hair,
Here.
all the above,
You had no hair here.
I'd be in big trouble. I'd be single. My kids wouldn't like me. I'd be really good at Dynasty, even better, because I'd spend so much time in it.
There is the upside.
There is upside.
I like that you saw it there.
You know what? I'm shaving my head. I'm going to be better at Dynasty. The people need it.
That's literally taking one for the team.
So we're back. We finally got the injury bug upon us to a greater degree. So we'll talk about some injuries, talk about some players we like, our weekly buy. We'll have a good weekly buy and sell in the Nerd Herd like we do every week as well. So let's power through some of these Dynasty Fantasy Football conversations, shall we? See where we are after we were through, week 2? Almost 20% of the way through the season?
Yeah, it's creeping up on us already. Obviously, not a time to overreact, in my opinion anyway. A little early still, and some of these teams are still rounding into form. Not a lot of them had a lot of reps in preseason. So we're seeing some wonky stuff happen week 1 and week 2, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get to the buys and we'll figure out. We'll get it. If you're 0-2, no need to panic.
Pump the brakes.
We got a long way to go. But before we get into this week's show, let's tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is my favorite app to use for props, and more props.
Yep.
If you like over-unders, if you want to say, hey, Adam Thielen won't catch a football until quarter 4, and you're like,
Give me a break.
I think he'll catch one before that. I'm taking the under. That's good. You would have lost.
Yeah, of course.
But it's a good way to get around it. If you want to say, hey, Justin Fields is going to throw over 25 passes.
Of course, they're going to be playing from behind. They have to throw more passes.
They got to, right?
Yes.
They got to give this kid a chance.
Right.
You would have lost.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But if you're savvy and you know that Justin Fields is going to throw a lot of footballs, if you know that Adam Thielen's not getting any looks until the fourth quarter, you have a chance to win up to 10 times your entry. That's right. That's what PrizePicks is. It's the best legal way to make player props. So what you do is you go on there, 2 to 5 players, and you look at the projections, just you versus the computer, and you get your action in, right? Like if you have like Joe Mixon on a year, over 1,200 yards. If you took Saquon Barkley, where he's at like 1,000 yards rushing, you do the over, you're smashing, right?
Preseason. Yep, those are good preseason buys. What about this Thursday night?
Okay, give me one.
Mitch Trubisky, 195.5 passing yards.
195-point passing.
Is he going to get to that 200-yard mark?
I think they're going to throw the football a little bit more this week. The Browns secondary has been absolutely
they've been exploited,
lambasted these last couple of weeks. So I think he could get right around 225. I know he said he's going to target George Pickens a little bit more, so he wants to get the ball to 14. So I would take the over on Mitch Trubisky.
All right, another one for Thursday. We'll go the opposite quarterback.
I'll be there rooting for these.
Jacoby Brissett, 185.5.
Over.
Yeah.
Over.
I would think they need to, right?
I mean, he got in a groove this past week. Him and Amari Cooper got a really good connection. They didn't even utilize Jonathan Peoples-Jones whatsoever. Still, Kareem Hunt's heavily involved in the passing game. They use Nick Chubb there too. I think there's a chance to go over. It's a pretty solid mark on a Thursday night football.
I hate these Thursday night lines. I just hate Thursday night football. It bothers me, and you can get some weird clunkers. So I understand this line being here. I would think on a normal day, Jacoby Brissett would go over, but I might just take the under and think
confliction
and think, hey, man, the Browns are going to have a stinker after that blown fourth quarter lead, and really put up a dud.
So I feel like it's home game versus their rival.
They were getting booed. They were getting booed on the way out. On Sunday.
I was booing,
and they were angry about it.
I was very angry. Honestly, the most angry I've ever been leaving a Browns game in my entire life. Yeah. Like I was very angry.
So if it goes bad, it could start going real bad, real fast.
Well, we'll find out, and you can get on there and you can tell us what you think, or don't even tell us. Tell us Prize Picks what you think.
That's right.
And get on there. And if you just like Matt doesn't like Thursday night games, you could take Sunday night games. You could take baseball, basketball. MMA, soccer, it doesn't matter. You can mix all of them together at Prize Picks. It's why it's my favorite app to use when I want to get some action in. And all you got to do is right now is use your promo code NERDS. You want to use that promo code NERDS, and they're going to give you a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So they're going to give you free money instantly. Get on there, Prize Picks, fast withdrawals, everything you need. I use it. Matt uses it. Actually, the whole nerd staff uses it when they can. Get on there, Prize Picks. Promo code NERD. So let's talk about some of these injuries, shall we?
Let's do it.
Justin Herbert comes in. X-rays were negative. He does have some fracture to the rib cartilage. They're considering him day-to-day. I also heard like he did fracture like a couple of ribs, though.
I'm waiting to hear, it's Wednesday when they have to like report on this stuff, right? So I'm waiting to hear exactly what kind of designation he gets and what kind of injury they actually say he had. Obviously, he was able to play through it. You would think, he's going to have another injection and be able to play through this one as well. As long as they don't puncture his lung, he should be good. I mean, obviously, they've got the history. Hopefully, they got rid of that doctor.
Michael Myers out there trying to give you the syringe.
Hopefully, they got rid of that doctor that punctured the Tyrod Taylor's lung. But who knows? But I would think he's a guy that you're just going to fire up this week and start.
Might be a little bit less, limited.
Lower your expectations, right? A hair. But it's still Justin Herbert. You probably don't have a better option on your roster, and you're probably just going to have to end up starting.
I mean, dude, look what he did. I mean, he had he could have easily run for that first down. He just threw the ball in the dirt with like 5 yards of clearance ahead of him. He only needed a yard. But then right after that, he throws a 30, 40-yard rope down the mile. I mean, a beautiful pass. So we'll see. And usually, no matter what, after 3 weeks, we've seen this before. We've seen guys
maybe those painkillers finally
there you go, kick him
finally
in.
Kicked in.
Good. When you got Steve Spagnuolo, they're coming to slap you on the ribs after the game 85 times in a row. Like, oh, go get him, kid. This happened to Justin Fields last year. It took him about 3 weeks. It happened to Tua in 2021 as well. It took him about 3 weeks. It even happened to Drew Brees before that as well. And they all took about 3 weeks to get back to 100%, and they all look fine afterwards. So that shouldn't be a long-term issue there. Jerry Jeudy, he hurt his shoulder. We'll see what's going on there. We don't know 100%, but that usually the shoulder injury for a receiver.
It was said not to be anything serious. Like he's not going to miss time. We've seen this plenty of times when dudes like tear their labrum and they say it's not very serious and they have a hard time lifting their arm. So we are going to have to monitor this one, right? And see exactly what the extent of this injury is. And a lot of times they can play through it, throw on a harness, something like that. But sometimes it does limit the mobility. So Jerry Jeudy, a guy to keep an eye on. Obviously, Cortland Sutton was the guy kind of took off after that injury and got most of the targets.
And what do you have to be wary too with these shoulder injuries? Like it's a high injury to like re-injure.
Oh yeah,
with these receivers,
risk of the re-injury,
where they use his arm. So I mean, they literally have I think it's like a 1 out of 3 chance to like re-injure that shoulder when it's hurt if it's not rested or healed properly, which is hard to do this time of year.
Did you get a chance to watch any of that Broncos game?
I did.
Yeah. What did you think about that offensive performance?
We're going to get into it because we're talking about some Russell Wilson later, but
okay.
I mean, not good at all. It seems
we'll dig in a little bit later. Yeah.
I mean, listen, if you've listened to the show for a while, I've never been a big Russ Wilson guy, and honestly, he hasn't been like stupendous these last couple of years. But I mean, he's always he's something that's like it's like me. Like I'm not for everybody, right? Like I rub a lot of people the wrong way. That's fine. It's just me. Russ is just somebody that like his whole personality and everything just kind of like I don't know what it is about him. It just and like you on the sidelines, like he's sitting there going, "Ron, you gotta yell, Ron, you gotta yell, Pat."
Run pass, man. Come on, 96.
It's like pipe down, nerd. Like I've been playing football my whole life. Like
this is Pee-wee football.
Yeah. You gotta tell me which way to go. Well, the Browns need hand signals in the back. They have no idea what's going on, so they could play some pee-wee football.
They could use somebody screaming pass.
Yeah, they don't know
when
who's
that guy's streaking down the field and no one's covering him.
Yeah, I'll never get over that. So it's gonna be interesting. The whole Broncos offense is kind of.
It just looked out of sorts to me, but we'll get into it a little bit.
Yeah, we will.
Let's move on.
Dalton Schultz, he hurt his knee. They said it should be a short window. They're hoping like a week or two.
Yeah, luckily he avoided the ACL injury. I mean, when I watched that one live too, and he jumped and like just crumbled. So I thought immediately to screw up his ACL somewhere. Like if it's a non-contact injury, normally that's where my brain goes. But luckily, just a PCL injury. Could just miss 1 week. This was the same kind of injury that Zeke played through kind of all last year.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he comes back quickly or not. I hope they don't rush him back and he's just kind of a shell of himself, because that would stink. I mean, this is his franchise tag year. You hope as a Cowboys fan, like you hope they don't rush a guy back and he's just not effective all year. Hopefully they give him like 2 weeks and he can actually, maybe him and Dak can kind of all be coming back together.
I mean, can we find any more reasons to funnel the ball to CeeDee Lamb? Like for him to get a really good, I know you weren't here last week, but we did a worry meter on CeeDee Lamb and I said 10.
You're worried you're at a 10 on the worry meter?
Yeah, I was at a 10 because the reason I said it was because of just not as a player himself, but where he is ranked overall in Dynasty, right? Like we had him as a second tier. I am as like my 4th overall player in startup, right? So like
he looked bad that first game. He was dropping passes.
And that's why I said it wasn't the fact about his production. It was how he looked physically. He looked really bad. So looked a little bit better this past week. No Dalton Schultz.
He's always been a guy that dropped passes, like in the NFL. I didn't see that coming out, from Oklahoma. Obviously, I didn't watch as much. I didn't watch him down in and down out at Oklahoma. So maybe he always kind of has had that issue. But he's a guy that seems to always kind of flub a pass. And you're like, what the hell is? And then he makes spectacular catches, and he'll most of the time make the routine stuff, but it does seem to be something that he kind of struggles with now and again.
Noah Brown's leading this team in reception, in yards, for 2 weeks in a row now.
I know.
For an offense that we thought would be a really good dynasty offense, or fantasy football offense, it's been a massive disappointment.
And Noah Brown is a guy that feels like he's been around forever because he came out early from Ohio State when he was 20 and then didn't get drafted to like the 6th round and was kind of just on practice squads and stuff like that. But he's only 25 years old right now. He's not like a guy that's 28, 29 years old at the end of his career. So he's an interesting guy. He's a guy I've always kept an eye on because I remember him kind of flashing here and there at Ohio State before he left. But I guess, do you see him as a guy that is anything for the future or no? I know that we had this kind of later on in our notes, but.
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah.
I think he looks good under circumstance as well. A team that's been trailing for most of the games, so they're throwing the football. Obviously, all the coverage is going CeeDee's way, and he's not really over to producing there. Dalton Schultz gets hurt early last week as well, so it helps Noah Brown as well.
No Michael Gallup, James Washington.
And that's the
Jalen Tolbert's been inactive. The first 2 weeks.
And Gallup's a pretty solid receiver in himself, but he's coming back here within the next 2 weeks, most likely. Right. So it's going to be hard pressed to see. Here's the thing. I think Noah Brown's a really nice stash on the bottom of my dynasty roster because I like players that come in and show that they can step up when needed to, right? Like, so when you see these kind of players that come in and are forcing that number 1 role or number 2 role, which ends up being the number 1 role for fantasy purpose, that they can produce. And that's what he's shown. And he's young enough, like you said, like that's the kind of player you can stash on your roster where maybe he shows enough this year to get opportunity next year somewhere else. Because
and that's the thing. I think he's worth a stash.
Yeah.
I don't think once Michael Gallup comes back, once James Washington comes back, he's going to have much of a role. But I think he has flashed just a little bit. A guy that I've always had an eye on, and he's done nothing, has finally started to do something. So it kind of just reignites that flame for me anyway. But with Gallup coming back, I'm hopeful that the Gallup will pull some of the coverage away from CeeDee and kind of take a little bit of the pressure off. I think he might be feeling a little bit of the pressure of being the number 1 option for the first time ever in the Cowboys offense, and now it's without Dak Prescott as well. So I think he might be pressing a little bit. I'm as far as the worry-o-meter, I was worried as well after the week 1 performance, but I just think we have to temper expectations right now, especially without Dak being there. So if he's still performing like this in week 8, it's my worry-o-meter is going to be at 12, out of 10.
Yeah, I might have cooled down a little bit from that 10, but I would still put it at 9. Again, it just goes back to what did I pay to acquire this player, or what is his perceived value overall in Dynasty? And I've already bumped him down in my rankings.
Yeah.
I've been trying to update my ranks like every 5 days now. And when I'm looking at Pittman or CeeDee Lamb, I'm like, man, I would for sure now, like in a Dynasty startup, I would rather just have Stephon Diggs. I would rather have Devontae Adams. And I know you're not getting the youth, but I'm getting at least probably 3 years of really high production.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stephon Diggs is going nuts right now. So.
Just like he did last year.
Right.
I mean, he just sees more targets than anybody else in the NFL, essentially. So, and I'm looking at Michael Pittman Jr., what he's doing, how safe he feels. It just, right now, with that high of a value, perceived value, and I don't look at it as like I'm not worried enough where I'm selling my CeeDee Lamb shares for nothing. I'm not doing that whatsoever. I mean, I know people heard the podcast and are sending me offers for CeeDee Lamb, but there's no price dip there for me. It just goes back to if I was like doing a startup draft, there's now a little bit of worry there with CeeDee.
Right.
A little bit.
Right.
And I just kind of want to, you can't miss there. Like,
it was
you
nothing.
Can't take him at 5 overall.
Yeah.
And then he ends up being 3rd round startup, which is, again, it's a really good player, but there's a massive difference there.
But there was so much preseason hype and optimism due to the fact that Amari was gone and it was finally his show, anything less than a top 3 type of start was going to be kind of a disappointment and a letdown. And to see him drop passes and kind of look bad week 1, I think the floor dropped out on a lot of people. The rug got pulled out from underneath him a little bit. And I think a lot of people are probably worried. I'm going to stick with my guns here. I think he's going to recover. I think it's going to take, unfortunately, until Dak gets back to see it fully kind of materialize, especially now that Dalton Schultz is gone and it's kind of just him and Noah Brown and the running backs that don't look like they're all that explosive and impressive. So the whole offense as a whole there in Cowboy land has been rough, I guess.
So you would advise to buy the dip if the dip keeps dipping?
I would. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I would too. I still like the player, but again, it's just kind of about investment-wise. Now, I only have, I think, out of my 20 leagues, I think I have 2 CeeDee Lamb shares. Yeah. I believe.
I got 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But even when you're 1 out of 5 too, like he's like your 3rd receiver, right?
He is. Yep.
So you're in a different spot.
Somebody could argue 4th if you put Pittman above him.
Yeah. So there you go. So you're golden in that league.
Yeah.
In the league that I have him in, like he's not my number 1 receiver. Same thing. I have Stephon Diggs in that league, but for dynasty value wise, he was my number 1 receiver. Going into the season wise, like if I had to keep one guy on my roster, just one guy, that's the guy I was looking at. So a little bit still worried.
I totally get it, man.
And like I said, it's not just off the statistics. It's just from watching week 1 as a whole. Like his route running, his hands, his fire. Just you gotta want it, buddy. Don't worry about your girlfriend on your cell phone. Like worry about the playbook and get out there making some catches. Another injury, you mentioned Michael Pittman Jr. He's got that quadriceps injury. He hopefully comes back this week.
I would hope so. I mean, he was one of those guys that came in middle of last week as the injury, or even late. I think it might have been a Thursday injury, and then he was scratched pretty late on in the week there before kickoff. So Michael Pittman, hopefully, quads not typically as bad as a hamstring injury.
Still soft tissue,
but it's still it still can be one of those things that flares back up, and we'll have to see how this week of practices go. Have you seen any practice reports on him this week?
Not yet.
Yeah,
I was just kind of like trying to look at the statistics on the quadriceps injuries, and averages right around 2 weeks is what you usually miss. Right around there. He's sustained that like after the game.
Well, it's forceps instead of two, like in your bicep. So a bicep injury 1 week, you think quadceps.
Get that and double it.
Take it and double it, man. It's got to be at least 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. So I think about little under half the people missed at least 2 weeks for the quadriceps injuries, which is never good. And we obviously saw nobody step up in his absence. Like he is a true alpha in that offense. Paris Campbell got goosed, man.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people put him in their lineup to think he'd be the number 1, but that's not a good
especially
sign.
with Alec Pierce missed as well.
Yeah,
and like who the hell else do they have to throw the ball to?
That's literally it. Nyheim Hines had about 10 points. Jonathan Taylor didn't have a good game because you didn't need to. Matt Ryan looked horrific. So it kind of goes back to our point about Michael Pittman. And we talked last year like Michael Pittman was a huge buy for us. We talked about him in the offseason. We talked about him at the end of the year for how he dominated in that playoff game. And it just goes to show you like those are the kind of players that you want on your roster, right?
He's
Like
the
Michael
straw
Pittman's alpha.
that stirs the drink there, apparently.
The focus goes to Jonathan Taylor, but like the long-term play there is going to be Michael Pittman Jr. So if you're looking for the next Mike Evans, a guy that could be that wide receiver one consistently, where it's not always big and it's flashy, but for 8 years straight to have potentially a wide receiver one.
It's huge. I mean, he came out, guns a-blazing that first week, 27, 28 points in PPR leagues. So,
I don't think until they draft somebody else that's going to be...
They've already got Alec Pierce. What do you mean? It's, you know what I mean?
True, they do have Alex Pierce in the second round. So Michael Pittman Jr., so who would you rather have? We asked this question last week. Michael Pittman Jr. or CeeDee Lamb? Dynasty.
I totally get it. Yeah. It's a tough one. Usually I like to think as if I don't have but I have both those players on one team.
Yeah, but it should be easier for you though. So you have to get rid of one. You know the players, the production week in, week out. Say it was a Rule 5 draft, and you can only keep
I can only protect one of those.
One of those guys. Who are you protecting?
I love the fact that CeeDee Lamb is, he's with a quarterback that's much younger. Unfortunately, he's been coming up a little bit lame lately as far as injuries.
It hasn't been that sweet for the last 2 years, to be honest with you.
But Matt Ryan's old, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's got a foot and 3 toes in the grave.
Yeah.
From a fantasy perspective.
37 or 38?
I think he's 39.
Is he really? Okay. Well, he's up there. And either way, regardless, he's got a few years left, and that's it.
At life.
Football life. I'm leaning towards CeeDee Lamb still.
You're still leaning CeeDee Lamb?
I am, but it's very close. razor thin.
Yeah, see, I think if I was in a startup is how I look at everything. Like, so I look at perceived value, and they're both looking me in the face. I think I would take Michael Pittman Jr.
Do you?
By a hair. Just because, again, force production, right? Like, he's going to get all the targets. He's going to be the number one look every single time.
You could say the same thing about CeeDee Lamb, though.
Well, Michael Gallup's there.
Yeah, but Alec Pierce is there.
And
you know what I mean? And Paris Campbell's there.
But Paris Campbell might not be there next year. He's on the last year of his deal. And Alec Pierce, yes, he's there, but right now he's more of just a go route deep threat kind of guy. Showed a little bit more in preseason with his route running, but not enough. At least I haven't seen it yet with Michael Gallup. So splitting hairs, there's no wrong answer.
No,
you know what I mean? Like you're happy.
Well, there is one of them's
going to score more points.
One of them's going to be better.
Yeah, you're right. There is a wrong answer.
I might have just made it. There is going to be a wrong answer there.
Okay,
so we'll see.
So you take CeeDee, I take Michael Pittman, and that's today. And maybe I'd be looking a full couple weeks down the road because you're overreacting.
Right. And that's what I'm trying not to do in making that pick as well.
I was talking about it as Jared,
but I really like Michael Pittman though as well. So it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. Like
when it comes down to week 1 and week 2 and early in the season, you don't want. I said this on the podcast too. And I was like, you don't want to overreact, but you do want to be the first to react, right? Like you don't want to get caught holding the bag and be left behind or lose, say, perceived value while you have it, right? And it goes both ways from buying and selling. That's the game of Dynasty.
Draw.
Yeah.
Draw. You don't want to be the last one drawing, man.
No. And that's this game in a nutshell, right? Like what we focus on here at the podcast too, like, there's a lot of shows that do a lot of things well, like analytics, breakout age, all that stuff. We really do try to focus on who to draft, who to buy, who to sell. That's our motto. That's our structure here at Dynasty Nerds. That's what we do. Who to draft, who to buy, who to sell. And
really when, you know what I mean? When to buy, trade, all that kind of stuff.
It's all those windows, right? Like it's about hitting that window at the right time, because if you don't, you can see, just like the stock market, such a massive swing in your wins and losses. Yep. And you're going to take your L's, but you're also going to take your wins. And you're just trying to stack up those wins more than the L's. And, we'll have our L's. We always will. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy to think that we have way more W's than we have L's. And that's how you build a long-term winning dynasty team. It's why 8 years ago, we came out with hashtag 2 to 3 year window.
Absolutely.
Now a lot of people look at their dynasty teams in that window, but we've been talking hashtag 2 to 3 year window for 9 years now.
Long time. Yep.
So,
and to that point, before you move on, the worst thing you can do is, if you do make a bad trade and take an L, is just stop trading and stop doing any of that. Because I've seen that kind of stuff in some of our leagues before, and you're never going to get anywhere doing that. I mean, like, don't let one bad trade sour it for you. You know what I mean? You got to jump right back on that horse and go make another trade. And as long as you keep doing that in the long term, you're eventually going to start winning those, and it's eventually going to turn around, and that's how you kind of build a huge, successful dynasty team for the long run.
I've given first for players that flamed out,
Yep.
and then I've given first in drafts in the second round for Michael Pittman Jr.
I've given second round picks on flyer guys that absolutely 100% did not work out, but then I've gone back and I've given a fourth round draft pick for another tight end that worked out and boomed, and it was great. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be able to do both of those things and kind of just write off the bad and celebrate the good.
What could be an overpaid today,
Yeah.
an overpaid today could be an underpaid tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So we try to live by those models. Other injuries on the news here: Alvin Kamara cracking his rib cartilage. He hasn't looked that great so far.
It's a little bit worse for a running back when you got cracked ribs, cartilage, whatnot. A little bit harder to juke and move the way you need to for that position. So I think we're probably going to see him shut down for a couple of weeks. I would imagine, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play last week, so we imagine he'll be shut down this week too, which makes it Mark Ingram as a number one there. I think it increases Taysom Hill's usage a little bit more there too. But obviously, we've seen with the air yards here. We'll talk about them later. Like, for Olave, for Jarvis Landry.
I loved all the memes of Jameis. Screw it, Olave's down there somewhere.
I saw those today. I saw those because I was doing some Olave research today, just like diving a little bit deeper into him. And I came across like 8 of those memes. Like, screw it, yep, Olave's down there somewhere. Like, yeah, because he had what I have the notes in here somewhere. We'll find it. But the air yards he had were absolutely ridiculous. And he missed a couple. And then he finally comes down with one. He fumbles it. But
a little bit of a rough day.
So it boosts all 3 of those guys. They're all being pretty productive so far. But we're seeing the Kamara chink in the armor, a guy who's been historically the next LaShawn McCoy. Dalvin Cook hasn't looked that great. Like some of these guys, the age number, Derrick Henry hasn't looked good. I've been telling you to sell him forever.
I mean, honestly, the carries have finally caught up to that guy. I can't believe guys didn't know that.
Didn't look as good at the end of last year as well. Not the very tip of the end. But yeah, I mean, he hit that 1,500 carry mark, and that's historically bad. He hasn't looked that good. Hasn't looked as explosive. Dalvin Cook hasn't looked as good. Alvin Kamara,
that's true.
Zeke Elliott, the chart symbol is pointing down, like way down.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, it's under my toes.
Tickles, doesn't it?
A little fluttering. Butterfly kisses. Alvin Kamara's probably going to miss a couple weeks. We talked about Michael Pittman Jr. Damian Harris has a leg issue, but he said he was fine after the game. He looked okay.
I didn't see anything on that injury, so I wasn't sure. Yeah, it seems like that's pretty much a non-issue.
They lose Ty Montgomery, so we were hoping if you were hoping that Ramondre Stevenson would kind of fall into that role, that pass catcher role. He did. He saw a little bit more of a snap count there. Right. But it looks like it's a 50-50 split there.
It does look very split up. Both guys are productive enough that you can put them in your lineup and not expect huge numbers, but expect decently good numbers in PPR formats. I mean, 13, double digits anyway, from both of them.
James Conner's got an ankle injury, not too serious of what he says. But I think the biggest news out there, what you want to take away, we thought Eno Benjamin would be the clear backup. Looks like Darrell Williams is the backup.
Yeah, Darrell Williams came in and performed really well. They still got Eno Benjamin more involved than he was before, like previously last year, obviously.
Passing downs.
But he's a passing down guy. I think that's how they see him and how he's going to be used.
But you definitely want to check your waiver wire for Darrell Williams, see if he's available, because he's a great stash to have on your roster. He did look pretty good.
He looked good when he got opportunities with Kansas City as well. So he's a guy that knows he's a professional running back. How about that? He can get the job done.
I'll take that. You get the paycheck, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm loving that.
Some guys earn their paycheck. I think he earns his paycheck. Other people just collect a paycheck. I think he earns it.
That's fair. You see a lot of people that are just collecting.
Yep.
Hunter Renfro's got a concussion. We'll see how long he's out. Monitor that situation.
What was with the targets for Devontae Adams last week?
I have no idea. Starts the game off hot, scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
He's in there. You're like, oh, it's going to be one of those games for Devontae. And then...
Was it 7 targets or something that he got and ended up with or something?
That whole game just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, it was
completely fell apart. Like, it started off real hot, and like most opening drives or scripts, like they come out, guns a-blazing.
Yep.
And after that, it was just
doo-doo,
nothing.
Doo-doo
he saw
butter.
nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing after that.
When I saw the statistics, it was insane. Like, because I was watching Red Zone Channel, and I was a little bit distracted at times. So I figured I just missed something from him, but then I went and looked at the stats. It was crazy.
I have a lot of Devontae Adams shares, and I was like, I saw he scores his touchdown. I see the opening touchdown, looked good, even though it was short. I'm like, yeah, it's to be one of those games. And same, I'm with you. Like, I'm on the Red Zone channel. I'm still furious over the Browns game, so I'm kind of like not in the greatest mood.
Right.
I went to the game, so I got home late, a little bit later. I had to stop in the middle of the street and scream. That's a true story. I had my kids with me, and I yelled profanities. My kids have to learn.
There was a lot of people. There was a lot of people downtown. I was at the Guardians game in a suite, watching football, watching baseball, and watching the Red Zone. It was amazing. But there were both games let out at the exact same time. I was in gridlock for like 20 minutes, half hour after the game was over.
I've been going down there so long at the VIP parking where I know exactly where to park to get in and out.
There's no way to get out
from where you are
from the Guardians,
from the Indians, from the Indians game.
There's no way because they direct you. You have to go like all the way around the stadium, and then you're just in the mess.
But I have a spot for you there. I do have an Indian spot too.
All right, we'll talk later.
Well, I'll tell you. It's on Prospect. Same thing. Money from where you live to where I live. You get out of the game. Takes 5 minutes to walk to your car. You're in your driveway in 30 minutes.
My wife gets parking passes for her work. At the stadium.
Would you rather pay $20?
I paid nothing. I paid no bucks.
But would you rather pay $20 and not be in gridlock and be home in 30 minutes, or sit in traffic for an hour?
Pay no bucks and just sit in the traffic. I'll be fine.
Somebody needs to give you a raise. What else we have on here? Hunter Renfrow, concussion, minor than that.
Hunter Renfrow. Yep.
Mike Evans.
It was 7 targets, by the way. I wanted to go look it up, but it was 7 targets.
Maybe you should catch 6 of those.
He only caught 2 for 12.
I am very aware. Like I said, a lot of shares.
Ridiculous.
Mike Evans suspended 1 game because him and Marshawn Lattimore hate each other, which is fine.
They really do.
That's fine. They generally hate each other. Tyrion Davis-Price, high ankle sprain. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Is there any team in the NFL that injures their running backs more than the San Francisco 49ers?
They light them on fire. They just burn through them, man. It's insane.
It is literally every year. Week 1, starting running back out.
Yep.
For what, the last 3 years?
It seems like it has.
Remember when Jerick McKinnon was to be awesome there?
I sure do.
I'm sure the listeners do if you listen to the show.
He didn't even make it to the season.
No.
That was preseason injury, wasn't it?
Yeah, both years. Like, oh, okay, this year's the year. They get hurt again. So Tyrion Davis-Price is out. I mean, not like you're missing much there. So Mason comes in. They signed Marlon Mack to the active roster.
I was just about to say that. I think Marlon Mack's probably going to be the guy that's directly backing up
Jeff
Wilson at this point, because the other guy's an undrafted free agent. I mean, we've seen him come out of nowhere, especially in this offense here. So worth a shot on what was his name?
Marlon Mack?
No, the other guy, the undrafted free agent, Mason. Thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue, but I can remember.
Not worth a shot. I mean,
not worth a shot.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I guess any San Francisco running back.
Because what happens when Jeff Wilson injures himself this week?
Okay, let me reframe that. You want him on your roster, but like he's a first, second down kind of guy. Just he's not going to score you a lot of points. I don't believe, but you never know.
You never know, man. They get somebody that kind of catches fire, and they could just run with them.
I think Jeff Wilson being there with Jimmy Garoppolo back, who we're going to hear in a second, Trey Lance is like really good news too. I think he has a chance to be a nice, solid running back too here for next 6 weeks till Elijah gets back.
I absolutely do think that as well. I had Elijah Moore last year, and heading into the playoffs, I went and backed him up with Jeff Wilson. I think I gave a 3rd round draft pick in 2022, this past draft, to get Jeff Wilson just for my playoff run, and now it's paying dividends now in this current year. So hopefully some other people that had Elijah Moore have already made that step as well and made that move, because it's seamless. You just, I mean, if you need a guy, luckily he was my running back 3 anyway, so I haven't had to use him, but Jeff Wilson, at least he's going to be usable for the next few weeks.
And then obviously the biggest news of the week is Trey Lance. Had an ankle injury. It was not good. I know he had some ligament damage as well. His foot was facing the other way, so he had an ankle fracture, dislocation, and he's out for the year.
Luckily, it was not a compound fracture.
Very lucky.
Apparently, that's what happened to Dak. So it's a little bit better than what happened to Dak, but not like leaps and bounds. It's still pretty good.
That's good news because you do rely on Trey Lance's mobility. So the compound fracture, like we saw out of Dak, I mean, his yards per carry went down drastically after that compound fracture.
Sure.
The terrible news here is this was the year that Trey Lance had to come in, which I know on this podcast, we told everybody before the season in the summer to sell Trey Lance like as quick as possible. I had an inside source in the locker room. This player said, Trey Lance isn't it. But at the same time, that has nothing to do with him getting hurt. Right.
Correct.
The biggest problem here is this was supposed to be a year to kind of
get back to football. Get back to football.
He's played 1 year of football since 2018.
Yeah. It's been a long time, dude.
5 years. 5 years. He did not look good throwing the football in the games he's played so far, preseason, regular season.
He's looked rough.
It's not looking good for your Trey Lance shares.
No.
I mean, do they bring Jimmy Garoppolo back again next year?
This is they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Because they still don't have first round draft picks for another year, right? They don't have 2023, right? They didn't have 2022, and they used 21, 22, and 23, right? So they still don't have a first round draft pick next year. Which, you're stuck with him. I mean, you're going to have to try to work out a deal with Jimmy G, I think. And now you're going to be playing the game where you're right at the end of Trey Lance's deal by the time he's back and healthy and ready to go. You know what I mean?
He needs next year to figure it out. You're in a win now window. You have a quarterback who's played 1 year of football in 5 years. Besides that 1 year where he looked good, the 1 year, and still mostly looked really good running the ball, big arm, but his accuracy issues were an issue. To try and figure it out in his championship window,
it seems like round peg square hole type of fit for me. You know what I mean? Trying to get this guy to work on this team. This team needs a Tom Brady. You know what I mean? That's the last. You know what I mean? That's what this team needs in order to compete and win. But instead, they're going with this unproven guy that, very unproven, and just doesn't have it. It doesn't look like he has the physical tools to do.
They'll probably sign a guy one of these guys that has a chance to come in and kind of somewhat compete, like a Sam Darnold, a Mitch Trubisky, a Baker Mayfield.
Those are all horrible. I mean, that's
oh yeah, it's not good.
No, that's dude. That's exactly what they don't need. They need a Derek Carr. They need somebody that's established and just can come in and run the. Well,
there's nobody even available though.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
crazier things have happened. Matthew Stafford getting moved. You know what I mean? They could make a big plow, but what are they going to use as their trade?
Exactly. It's not much out there. And maybe somebody maybe the Vikings move on for Kirk Cousins. Ryan Tannehill might get moved on from after this year. So somebody could probably come in, and that's probably a good comp to have around a guy like Trey Lance for tutelage and if you need somebody. Tannehill. But not who cares about San Francisco, right? Their long-term future. They made their bed. They're sleeping in it.
They're going to lie in it. Yep.
From a dynasty perspective, let's look at it from a Superflex perspective. There is still Trey Lance truthers out there, regardless.
100%. Yep.
I think as an owner, if you have Trey Lance on your roster, you should find that person. Would you take a 23 first?
100%. Smash accept.
And Superflex.
Yep.
Oh, I would too.
I would be looking to get out from underneath that.
Doesn't matter where it is.
In a heartbeat. Does not matter.
Yeah.
100%.
123 first.
This is the same thing when I had Jordan Love on my team, and I got him for a second round draft pick. So this was a get him late, flip him for something earlier type of thing. Second, Aaron Rodgers was talking about retiring whenever it was. Sold him to the first person that would give me a first round draft pick. I didn't care where it was at. Just get him off my roster.
You got a first, right?
I got a first round draft pick for him. And I feel the exact same way about Trey Lance. Bail. You know what I mean? I'm hitting the eject button, and that is also the accept button on any first round draft pick trade offer.
So it doesn't matter what cows around you, grab that teat and start milking.
Absolutely milk it.
Yeah.
Get him off your roster.
I'm with you too. I would take, if I had Trey Lance, which I don't, on any single roster I have, I would take any 23 first.
There's nothing that I can hang my hat on and feel good about. You know what I mean? Nothing. Now he's injured. Yeah. And who knows what the one thing that he was good at, who knows how effective he's going to be at that. He hasn't shown me anything that looks like NFL quarterbacking from a throwing standpoint, and if he's not going to be able to run as effectively, it torpedoes his whole value.
Okay. Let's dive in some burning questions, shall we?
Ooh, burning.
Probably one of the hottest names right now across your timeline in the Dynasty community, somebody who's seen a massive spike, is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in right now, do you view him as a top 15 Dynasty receiver right now? Because over the last 8 games, he's got more catches. He's averaging 98.5 yards a game. He's on average. He's got 8 total touchdowns. Coming in with a target share of last week, 35.3%. Week 1, 32.4%. In his games this year, we saw going back to like week 12 last year, he's seen at least 31% of the target shares. So he comes in here. He's been a top 7 wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Going back to last year as well since week 12. Where do you look with Amon-Ra St. Brown? Because he's even got a couple carries, 2 carries for 68 yards. Mm-hmm. He's seen a massive spike in value. A lot of people are going to view him as probably a top. Let's start here. Let's start at the low end. Do you view him as a top 15 Dynasty startup wide receiver?
It's very close. How about that?
I
think yes is the correct answer.
Agreed.
And if I had to put him somewhere, it would be right around 15 or 16 or 17 or 14, maybe if I was feeling froggy. You know what I mean? So it's not like a heck yeah, he's definitely a top 15 guy. I have him at 6. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. It's somewhere right around 12 to 18 in that range. And that's a great place to be, especially for a guy that's a former 4th round draft pick. But here's the only reason I'm not like, oh, heck yeah. I mean, it's last year, the end of the year's production was wonky and kind of a little bit deceiving when you just look at the numbers, because if you remember, no one else was there to catch passes. It was literally just him.
Nobody.
And now he's done everything right. I mean, the hype train was already kind of going in the offseason, so I don't think there was ever like a big time buying window or anything for Amon-Ra St. Brown before he did all what he, and you'd have to go back to midway through last year to go find a buying window for this guy. But this year, great start. I mean, this is super. I don't want to overreact to 2 weeks either way, good or bad. And you talked about you got to be the first one to draw, right? I mean, you got to be the first one to move sometimes, but you don't want to overreact. This feels like one of those things. If you go out and try to trade for him right now, the price is going to be through the roof. You're
paying premium value.
You already got outdrawn, so let's not overreact, you know what I mean, and go overpay for a guy.
Here, my worry with Amon-Ra St. Brown is this. And I have no concern about being a wide receiver 2 for a while. I actually like what the Lions are doing here on offense. Yeah. Looks very creative. The new offensive coordinators looked really good. Jared Goff is putting together very solid
four
games
touchdowns
here.
This past week.
Yeah, so a very good offensive line, which makes literally a world of difference for any player. What I'm concerned about with Amon-Ra St. Brown is what happens when Jameson Williams comes back.
Yep. And
he'll still be eased into it, but they gave up a lot you got to remember, they moved from like 31 to 12 to get Jameson Williams. They gave up a lot to get him. He's a dynamic receiver. I expect TJ Hockenson to get a little bit better in this offense, I hope. DeAndre Swift is still very valid in the passing game. When his offense really starts to gel and open up together, and definitely bring a guy in like Jameson Williams, that target share is not always going to be at 30%. So, yeah, he's wide receiver like 4 overall right now. And I think he ended the year as wide receiver 2 last year if you take it from week 12 on as well. So he's been highly productive when put in this situation. It kind of goes back to like our Noah Brown talk, right? Like, I love to see a player that's when he's put in that role, like the number 1 guy, like he's going to produce.
Well, this is like Noah Brown on like steroids. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, this is
juice him up.
Yeah.
So we got Barry Bonds here running routes, and he's looking really good doing it. I want to like take it back just a little bit because when Jameson comes back, he's so dynamic and explosive himself. And I think it's opened up a little bit more, even for a guy like DeAndre Swift who could get a little bit more action in the passing game. I feel like that should come back a little bit, but he's looked so damn good.
And that was another thing. DeAndre Swift, he wasn't used as much in this game due to the ankle injury. So he didn't get a lot of run where he normally would.
Hence why we saw 3% more target share for Amon.
Exactly. So I think some of these numbers are getting a little bit inflated due to the fact that I mean, there isn't a lot of other options, and the good options that are there. DeAndre Swift was injured. T.J. Hockenson, I'm not sure what the hell that guy is at this point. I know we kind of talked about that in the offseason a little bit, and to a man, I think we all kind of went, he's kind of fading into the top 8 to 15 range.
The realm you don't want to be in.
Exactly. The realm you don't want to be in as a tight end. So
he's still 25, which is...
He's young, but he's not an explosive guy. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't look explosive on the field, and he doesn't pass the eyeball test for me anymore. He's a guy that needs, I think, a lot of volume, and I'm not sure he's going to get it because I think now there's better options on the team.
He's in a world of trouble from where we initially had him. He's going to fall.
Yeah.
But you do hope he can turn into, what's his face for the Cowboys that retired?
Yeah, Jason Witten type of guy.
Jason Witten.
Yeah.
Really sure hands, athletic enough. But we'll see. Like I said, your biggest hope is that when Jameson comes back, all these guys can open up the middle for T.J. Hockenson.
That would be the hope, yeah. I mean, and getting back to Amon-Ra St. Brown, because he is a better option. I'm not sure this is going to be able to sustain. I think he's a really good player. I think if you drafted him, he was a 4th-round draft pick. You probably got him in the 2nd or 3rd round of your rookie draft, and it's paying huge dividends. You know what I mean? Like, this is great. I wouldn't go and sell him because I think he's going to be able to maintain really good numbers. I don't know that he's in the top 12 elite status yet. If he keeps performing, and even when Jameson Williams comes back, if he somehow shelves him, then he's hit it. You know what I mean? Then he's in the top 10 if he somehow pushes Jameson Williams. But I want to see that, and I want to see him do it over a longer period of time with all the options available.
That's what you want to do. You want to see him with all the other options.
Yep.
But he's looked really good. His route running, his
really
hands,
good.
he's looked damn good. Would you, if you have Amon-Ra St. Brown on your roster, and this doesn't matter if you're a contender, you're rebuilding because he fits all those models, right? Would you see if you can get 2 firsts for Amon-Ra St. Brown, or would you rather just hold? Would you test the waters? Because the hype train's so hot right now. He's wide receiver 4 overall, coming off 2 massive weeks because of target share.
I think it depends on where I'm at in a rebuild. If I know that I'm like just starting it off and he's my piece, then maybe. You know what I mean? If I don't have a lot of other good pieces and I need something to get a rebuild jump started, and you likely just used like I said, like a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick on a guy, and you could turn him over and flip him for 2 first-round draft picks in a really good draft coming up next year, I think I'd be tempted by that. I know that you are hoping to get a guy like him with one of those picks, and you got to cross your fingers. But if you hit and you get a wide receiver or 2 good wide receivers, now you're kind of springboarded and you're kind of moving in the right direction. So if that is probably the only way I would sell him. If I'm a contender, no, I'm just going to gobble up all these points and love it week in and week out. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a contender, it's always hard to sell anybody. Definitely somebody young, as young as Amon. You'd rather just risk it and hold on. Because like you said, if you listen to this show, you probably took Amon-Ra St. Brown high in the 2nd round because that's where we had him ranked. So you might as well just hold on to that because your loss value isn't that great. Again, you're always trying to still win the ship. Other news here that we want to talk about, guys, burning questions. How far, I wish Garrett was here, how far down does Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney move in your ranks with the offense clearly focusing on the run and almost forgetting the pass altogether? I mean, Justin Fields has thrown the ball just 17 times and 14 times in his 2 games in his first 2 games of the season. I mean, even when they're trailing by a lot, I know they've had some inclement weather these first couple of weeks, but even when they're down multiple scores, they're like the lowest thrown football team by a large margin. Well under 40. I think they're under like 46%, somewhere around there, in the passing game right now. Where are your concerns? I mean, Cole Kmet has got nothing going whatsoever. Darnell Mooney, I know you and I were a little bit lower than the other guys on the show. We think he's like a really good number 2 wide receiver.
I do. Yep. I'm not going to move Darnell Mooney much either way in my ranks because like you just said, I didn't have him super high to begin with, and I don't think a 2-game stretch where they're not really passing the ball much is going to change that. I think they are going to have to eventually open up this offense a little bit more. I think new offensive coordinator. I think they're trying to run the air out of the ball, make things simple, and kind of get Justin Fields a little bit of confidence. This is how a lot of NFL teams used to bring in quarterbacks. They used to run the snot out of the ball and just keep running the snot out of the ball and try to play good defense behind him and get the guy some confidence and some easy throws, and eventually add a little bit more, and then add a little bit more, and then add a little bit more. So I think it's a formula that can work to get a guy some confidence and kind of build them up. It's what they did with like Big Ben, for instance, his rookie year, and they eventually they keep putting things in that the quarterback does well. They pull out the things that are clunkers and kind of stink. But it's a very small sample size week in and week out, so it can be a very long kind of process to get things worked in and kind of open things up a little bit. But I think by the end of the year, this is going to look like a much different offense than it does right now. I guess is my point. So I'm not going to move either one of these guys terribly far. I think Cole Kmet gets a bump down a little bit for this year because we had some hopes for him, right, going in, that he could have been one of these guys that's going to be a target monster, and kind of on volume alone, he was going to get in that top 7-8 conversation, where now it doesn't look like the volume's there for really anybody.
So I think for where he plays at tight end, I think there's still a lot of room for that to come along. He hasn't seen it yet. I'm with you. I do expect this offense to kind of open up a little bit more here in the coming weeks. I think the weather has played a factor here, and game conditions have, as a whole, or the stand in the field, has played a little bit into it as well. So I'm buying a Cole Kmet dip if it's there, because I do think he has a good chance for that target share, which is all I covet for tight ends. But that's it. Before we go into our next guy, which is going to have a big breakdown, because I have no idea where we're at in time, let me tell you about our friends at Prediction Strike. Do you wish you had stock in a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown before week 12 of last year?
Yes.
You could have bought that dip, and you'd have bought it, and he's probably going for like 30 cents or whatnot on the dollar. And now that he's coming in, he's have a high-end production here, week in and week out, that you probably would have quadrupled, what's 8 times your money? Doubled?
I don't know. It's something with an ock in it.
Ock double?
It's definitely not ock doubled.
You ock double?
I love that new word.
Yeah. You have probably ock doubled your money. And you can do that with our friends at Prediction Strike. That they can make that a real possibility. Prediction Strike is the only performance-based sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of professional athletes as if they were stocks. Prediction Strike lets fans create portfolios of their favorite athletes so they can get even closer to the game. Don't just draft your favorite players, start investing in them. Simply visit PredictionStrike.com or download their app on the App Store to create an account. Then deposit funds to buy, sell, and hold shares of your favorite players. Just like you would for the real stocks. The value of the players will change based upon game performances, as well as whether or other users are buying or selling those shares of those athletes. You can trade your shares or players anytime, as long as the player is currently in a game.
Isn't currently in a game.
Yep. Use the promo code DYNASTY right now, and you can receive a free share of a player. And maybe it's somebody that's going to come in and quadruple your money.
Exactly.
So PredictionStrike.com.
Easy for
use
you to
the
say.
app. Like we said, right before the season, we're like, hey, invest in Michael Pittman. If you did, you would have quadrupled your money at this point.
Right.
So check them out.
Doubled.
Where are we on time?
52 or something like that.
Oh my God, the show's almost over?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have, obviously we have to carry a lot of these over to our Nerd Show. So before we get into this last guy, we'll talk about him. I want to give you my sleeper buy or sell of the week. It's presented by Sleeper. Sleeper, as you know, the number one hosting platform for fantasy football and dynasty leagues. They sponsor this segment. And of course, you can find the Dynasty Nerds podcast on the Sleeper app. If you're in a dynasty league, you swipe over, you hit the podcast button. You got to be in a dynasty league to see it. Dynasty Nerds will be on there. You get your podcast there every single week. Matt, my buy or sell this week is actually a sell. And that is Dameon Pierce. Now, what I like about the sell this week, this is a week 2 sell, is he came out this week, got 69 yards, and got the 15 carries.
Hey.
And what's crazy is my buy last week.
How many yards?
69, Rob Gronkowski. My buy last week was Rex Burkhead. He comes out and does anything. So now I'm coming in and saying sell Dameon Pierce. He comes in, saw a majority of the snaps. He was clearly the early down running back there, with Rex Burkhead not getting a single carry on early downs. Now,
and they made it a point to say, hey, we're going to get this guy more involved in between week 1 and 2.
And they did.
Yep.
And, he played Pierce played a couple snaps on third downs, but they're all short yardage usage there. And the reason I want to say sell Dameon Pierce is right now, people are frantic about some of the running back situations. Alvin Kamara is down. Dalvin Cook's not looking down. Elijah Mitchell's out. Already in week 2, people are going to need running backs. Dameon Pierce is a rookie running back with a hot name, right? Like Dameon Pierce. He's a starter in Houston. He's young. But my concern with Dameon Pierce is that this is a team that's going to be most likely find themselves in more passing down situations than not, which is going to take Dameon Pierce off the field. Dameon Pierce is still a day 3 draft pick. So the odds of him having long-term success are still slim because if they see anything in the draft come up, they have a lot of draft picks coming up in a super deep running back class on a team that's honestly on the rise. I can easily see them drafting a running back where the Jets had Michael Carter, right? Like he looked fantastic. And all of a sudden take Breece Hall super high in the second. The Texans will find themselves in the same situation. The fact that Dameon Pierce isn't a third down running back, a pass catcher running back, really hurts his value overall in PPR.
Limits his opportunities, right?
It does. And even like last week, they increase his usage there, gets 15 carries, gets 69 yards. Nothing crazy. You're talking about 6.9 points. That's nothing great there.
He did have 1 catch for 8 yards.
Which is great.
Yep.
That's solid.
1 target, 1 catch, 8 yards.
I just think I'm trying to capitalize right now on the Dameon Pierce hype. Now, could his value rise? It could. Mm-hmm. But I kind of have a feeling like Dameon Pierce is what we saw this week is kind of in a nutshell what he's going to be, right? It's just a solid running back.
Solid job done. He's their best option. How about that?
Yes. But from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, I just don't see long-term love here.
That's the thing. He's a guy that's going to need a lot of positive game scripts in order to get the rushing totals that he needs in order to be effective from a fantasy standpoint. And this is a team that's going to be a hard out, but I think they're going to be in a lot of negative game scripts to your point. So it is going to be it's going to be hard for him to find the volume that he needs, I think, to be effective. So if you can sell him off his preseason hype that's finally, after week 1 up and vanished like a fart in the wind, it's kind of come back, like a bad fart has circled back around, and now his value has kind of come back to life a little bit. It might be a good time to sell. So I like this sell.
As of yesterday, here's a couple trades. I'm in the Dynasty GM trade browser where you can see all the most recent trades through Sleeper, FFPC, MFL. All those trades are here in the Dynasty GM app. So he went for a 25 first. He went for, I see a trade. These are 1 QB leagues. Kareem Hunt, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Logan Thomas for J.K. Dobbins, a 23 first, Dameon Pierce. I don't like those ones.
Those are tough to...
Yeah. Rashad Penny for Dameon Pierce, a 23 second, a 24 first for him.
I'd do those first.
Jeff Wilson, Jahan Dotson for Dameon Pierce. I would love that trade.
What was it?
Dameon Pierce for Jeff Wilson and Jahan Dotson.
Oh, yeah.
I would love the Jahan Dotson side.
Me too.
And Jeff Wilson. So... if you could find a first, and I'd be okay with the 24 first too, because I know, first of all, the 24 class looks pretty solid. And with the 23 draft class hyped so much up in the running backs, it might not be easy. You might be able to, I would try to get a 23 first for Dameon Pierce.
That's what your goal should be, is 23 for sure.
But I would settle for a 24 first.
Okay.
For Dameon Pierce. Just because I feel like the move is now. Now, I think there's a window here where this window is open for a little while, but I love the increased usage this week. So he's my sleeper sell of the week.
Okay. I like it, man.
All right. How about we hit on one more of these burning questions? You just want to knock them both out, and then we'll go down. We'll carry over these other guys.
Let's do the last one. I think we can carry that one above the last one over to the next round.
Okay. Well, there's 2. We have 3 more here.
Oh, let's just do the last one, and then we'll do the other ones later.
All right. Kyle Pitts.
All right.
Was Kyle Pitts the product of overhype or better days ahead, with only 4 receptions for 38 yards on 10 targets over 2 games?
Glue factory. He's done. He is done. I think the chances of Arthur Smith being done is greater than Kyle Pitts being done, personally. So I think I think there are better days to come with Kyle Pitts. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. I literally this week I put in multiple offers for Kyle Pitts, hoping there's any kind of dip whatsoever. And they were very strong offers, I feel like.
And how'd you get responded?
Oh, hard nose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just like I would too. There's no dip here. I mean, there's a lot. Listen, his usage has been terrible. 2 catches for 19 yards and these weeks is not good. Drake London seeing all the target share there right now, which is great for Drake London. It is. It's
absolutely.
great. He looks absolutely fantastic. But the big positive here for Kyle Pitts is he still has 91% route participation, right? Like he's still in there. He's still running routes. He's just not getting the targets right now, which, yes, is this sad? Of course it is. Is this sad that we're seeing guys like Farrell Brown outproduce him in receiving yards? Yeah. Guys like Kobe Parkinson? Yeah. It's not good. It's not good for what you invested in for him.
But Tyler Conklin's got him beat even, right?
It's not a pretty picture, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, when your 2-year-old draws you a picture, it's not pretty.
But you still hang it up.
You're still hanging up. Yeah. And you're still, you know what? Like, hey, one day this kid might turn into Picasso. Possibly. Like, I see the potential. It's nothing to worry about, right? Like, they are going to have to realize they have to throw the football to Kyle Pitts. He's just too good not to utilize.
It's pretty crazy, man. Or they're going to be looking for jobs. Like, I do feel like that strongly about it. If they're not getting this guy involved, they're not going to be winning games. And how do you keep your job if you're not winning games?
I mean, you have a top 5 pick that you use at a tight end.
You already got
come up a year,
1,000 yards.
Like literally broke every record possible for a tight end, and you're not even throwing him the football. And he's out there in every single play running routes.
And maybe it takes for them changing quarterbacks, which shouldn't take long. You know what I mean? Like,
Desmond Ridder is going to get some looks here sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to take very long for that to happen. So
let me ask you a question then off of Kyle Pitts, because again, we don't need to dig into this. Because Kyle Pitts is still a stud, regardless. Like everything he's shown us since college to last year, we know he's a stud.
Mm-hmm.
Desmond Ridder, super flex.
Okay.
Don't need a long, in-depth answer. Just want to know your opinion. What's the most you pay for him right now? Knowing that for him and Malik Willis both are right around the corner from getting opportunities.
I think right now I couldn't do more than a first. Would you do more than a first?
I wouldn't do it first. I wouldn't do a 23 first.
Okay.
Would you? And I like Desmond Ridder, but I'm not paying 23 first.
I think that's what you'd have to pay though, because for the reason that you
do. Okay. The most I would pay is 2 seconds.
Okay.
And even then, I feel dirty about. You know what? No, I'm just not buying.
I'm not buying either, but I'm just saying.
I'm not buying. So the most I would pay is a second. 1 second.
1 second. That's
and
it.
24.
Okay. It's 2028. I'll give you a second round draft pick. You give me that scrub that might get a chance.
I just want to throw it in your lap. Like, say all of a sudden, like we could get Desmond. Somebody come to you right now. Hey, I'll sell you Desmond Ridder because he's about to get started soon. Like, it's a super flex league. Like, what are you paying? I'm like, I don't know. I'll give you a second. If I'm a contender, 23 second. If I'm not a contender, 24 second.
I just don't think that's going to get it done.
It won't.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm paying. Listen, I have no problem telling people what I'll give. You know what I mean?
Sure.
People, because
I've seen that before.
Yeah. I mean, people are like, hey, he's worth more. But I'm like, to who?
Is he paying? Is somebody else paying more? Because these players ultimately are only worth what other people in your league are willing to pay.
I tell people, I was going through negotiating safer player, and I was like, he's like, well, he's worth. That's a really good offer. He's worth more than that. I'm like, well, I disagree.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with negotiating with me. So my opinion is all that matters. I don't care. You know, like for a guy, even like it's like a guy like Jahan Dotson, right? Like I'm not giving Jahan Dotson. Like I view him very strongly.
I agree.
This isn't the trade I'm going to talk about. So if you're listening, I have multiple date deals going here.
You don't want to torpedo. You don't want to torpedo your own deals on the podcast.
Oh, I do that all the time too. Desmond Ridder, I just want to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't give more than a first, and I'm not sure that would get it. You know, I'm not sure a first would get it done. So I don't know. I'm good.
That's fine because we have a lot to cover in the Nerd episode.
Right.
We got to talk about Tua. We got to talk about Tom Brady. We got to talk about these rookies. We got to talk about. Oh my gosh, we have so many more notes on here. We have a lot of players to talk about. We'll get to what we can.
Indeed,
it's the greatest part about having 2 podcasts a week is we got a lot to talk about.
We get to hash all this stuff out.
And remember, if you want to get the second podcast, if you want to get access to our trade finder that we use, the league analyzer, and so much more, most importantly, the film room, which is starting to open up here too. We're going to a whole bunch of all 22 film of your favorite rookies coming in for this 23 class of study with all the best dynasty tools on the market and a bonus podcast. All you got to do is join the Nerd Herd, baby.
Hey,
sign on
hey.
the YouTube channel.
Yep.
Use the promo code football, and you'll save 50% off everything we have on the site. Check us out for the price of a cup of coffee. You get another podcast that we get to sit here and talk to you about Dynasty Fantasy Football. You get all our tools to help you play the game as well, all for the price of a cup of coffee. It's really the best deal in Dynasty Fantasy Football right now. If you want to get the edge on your league mates, and that's all you need is the slightest edge in Dynasty on your league mates, that's the way to do it. Use the promo code football, save 15%, and we'll be talking to you next episode.
Adios.